We may know what Tanner Scott's looking for in a contract, and it might be a little too much for even for the Dodgers. And what do we want to look forward to in 2025? What do we want the Dodgers to do? What are some resolutions? Let's get into it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, and you can make it easier to become an everydayer by subscribing to get notified when our episodes are ready, or if we're going live on YouTube like we are here on Wednesday night. This is your first time listening or watching, welcome. That's Jeff Snider. I'm Vince Samperio, and we are the co-hosts of Locked On Dodgers. We've been doing it for 6 years now, going into year 7 now, I guess, technically. So, 7 years doing this podcast, covering the Dodgers for a few more years than that, and being Dodger fans our whole lives. So I believe we're a little bit qualified to talk about the Dodgers, and we're here to do that once again because that is what we do on Locked On Dodgers. And no big Dodger news. We are now in a new year, 2025, officially, as we record here on Wednesday night. And while we wait for Roki Sasaki to make his decision, which should come in about 2 weeks now, we know if the Dodgers have a roster that's pretty settled but can get better. One of those options for getting better is Tanner Scott, the best reliever left on the market. We've talked about him a few times this offseason, but we got a report of what he could be looking for in a deal, Jeff. And I don't want to say it's too rich for Dodger blood, but it is a little rich.
It is. It was Sean McAdam, who's a Red Sox reporter, I think, and he said on a podcast that he heard from a National League team that Scott is looking for 4 years, $20 million per year. So 4 years, $80 million. And that would be a very big contract for a reliever, smaller than what Josh Hader got last year. Or was that just last year? It was just last year from the Astros. But still, I'm trying to think if that would be the second biggest contract ever for a reliever. I assume Hader's was the biggest, and I can't off the top of my head think of any bigger contracts than that besides Hader's. So it will be a lot. And then when you factor in, like we talked about, with the Dodgers already being above the top tier of the luxury tax, $20 million a year would actually cost them about, $42 million a year. And so, that basically they'd be paying Tanner Scott almost as much as they're paying Shohei Ohtani if you take out the present day value. But that's also not how you look at it, because the fact is the Dodgers are already over the thing. Doesn't mean that guys who they signed before they were over the limit actually cost less than guys that sign after. It all spreads out. And I don't think they're really thinking about it that way. But, the fact that they are over the second or the top luxury tax limit might make them a little bit more conscious of how they're spending their money right now.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense of why Tanner Scott isn't signed yet if this is what he's looking for at the moment. It doesn't mean that's what he's going to get. It doesn't mean this is a for sure report of what he's looking for. But if there's a number out there thrown out by somebody, whether it's a team or an agent or whoever, for an 80 would make sense for what a top end reliever would want. Coming off the Josh Hader deal last year, 5 and 95. You think, okay, this is cheaper than that. Not by AAV, but by overall value, obviously, and one less year. You're getting Tanner Scott, who, while doesn't have the many years of success that some other relievers have had before getting paid. You can go. He has maybe a little bit fresher arm than some other relievers have had at this point in their careers, and there's a lot of positives you can talk about as much as any negatives you can think about when it comes to Tanner Scott. But ultimately, do I think he signs for this much? I don't think so. I can't imagine if there's teams that aren't spending $20 million or $22 million on Teoscar Hernandez type players or players that play every day and affect games in that way. I can't imagine they're going to pay for a reliever who, you never know what you're going to get with the reliever.
Yeah, and the really good point that that you hinted at there is that guys can ask for whatever they want, and the fact is Tanner Scott hasn't been signed yet, and maybe the asking price is the reason. Maybe there's no team that's going to come anywhere near that, but maybe he also knows it only takes one team, and I mean, you could picture, it used to be there was always one dumb team, and that's why salaries skyrocketed like they did. There was always one team that was at least one team that was willing to do something dumb. And then we got to a point after a while when people started saying this must be collusion. And really it was no, just every team is run by smart people now. Hypothetically speaking, if an arch rival of the Dodgers watched Tanner Scott dominate Shohei Ohtani a little bit last year and happened to be now run in their front office by a guy who maybe has more baseball experience than, say, front office smarts, hypothetically speaking, that team might go after Tanner Scott, without naming the Giants or Buster Posey by name. Hypothetically speaking, there may be a new dumb team back on the board now that the Giants have decided to go the route of this smart guy didn't do anything to it for us. Let's try a dumb guy. I don't know if Buster Posey's dumb, but I think he's probably not as smart business-wise as most general managers, and probably leans on his baseball experience. And that's how, there have been a lot of general managers over the years whose number one qualification was he was a good baseball player. And most of them have turned out to be pretty bad general managers. And so, it wouldn't shock me if the Giants jumped in, with who knows. But that was just one team that came to mind when I was thinking of the fact that it only takes one to pay that price. But I think more likely is that Tanner Scott's price comes down as he realizes, okay, well, nobody's willing to give me $20 million a year when they only gave Josh Hader $19 million a year. And so maybe it ends up being, and I don't know how far it would have to come down. 4 and 17 would be what, $68 million?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit more palatable for the Dodgers and some teams.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, with the way free agency is right now, it feels like teams are just waiting for prices to drop, kind of like when you are trying to get tickets to an event these days, and you're kind of waiting to see what the market does for you. And I feel like that's where teams are at right now. The years of all the big spending, other than like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, who got the big money late into the offseason. Most of the time, big money comes early in the offseason, and then nowadays you're kind of waiting, and you might get a big deal here and there, but nothing excessive. And for Tanner Scott, it just feels like if you're going to pay Tanner Scott, $20 million a year, if you're a team, I think you could go get two guys for maybe $25-30 million a year, but now you have two guys that cost almost the same as one. Or you can go Kirby Yates even if you gave Kirby Yates $20 million, $22 million, but a 1-year deal, like that might end up proving better for 2025. And then you can kind of see, you can kind of do that every year if you really wanted to with the reliever, and maybe try to settle the volatility a little bit that way. You can, do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, but Tanner Scott is good. We've talked about it. And, I think there are some people out there that value him a lot more than maybe I do. And, if it's 4 years, $80 million, that's definitely one of the people that values him a little more than I do.
Yeah, I still think the Dodgers will probably sign him, and I think it probably won't be for 4 years and $80 million. I would guess he might get the 4 years. I think they'd be more willing to stretch their comfort level on that than on the dollars, but maybe 4 and 64 ish, which would be 16 million a year. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, there are not too many teams willing to pony up for relief pitching right now. The Dodgers would be one of them, so it would make sense if, like I said, if it came down to that type of pricing. So we'll see. There, like I said, it just takes one team. I don't think the Dodgers thought anyone was going to give Corey Seager $300 million a few years ago, and one team did, and that's the way it went. So, all right, that's going to do it for Tanner Scott Talk. It's a new year, and obviously we want the Dodgers to win the World Series every year. But what else do we want to see from the 2025 Dodgers? We'll get into it, so make sure you keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to live events. I was at a live event yesterday. I went to the Laker game, and one other thing about live events is getting tickets. And like I just mentioned, if you want to be someone that waits for those tickets to drop, well, Game Time app is perfectly made for doing that, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Make some memories in 2025 and go out there and use Game Time to get your tickets. And right now you can check out Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You don't want to sit up top. You want to sit down near the bottom, and you want to be near the action. Well, that's what Game Time Picks is there to help you find those deals. So make sure to download the Game Time app and find your way into live events in 2025. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, your last listen of the day, your any listen of the day. We appreciate everybody that listens. We appreciate you. Those of you that join us live on YouTube, we go most nights these days during the week. And we know there's a lot of you in here that like to, get it popping on the chat, and a lot of you that listen at home the next day or in the car on the way to work or whatever it is. So we appreciate all of you. And if you're on YouTube already, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Jeff. So, every year we do a resolutions episode, it feels like. We had a little bit of a different episode for the episode leading into 2025, as you had some of our insiders on with you. So we wanted to get into those resolutions or what we want to see from the Dodgers in 2025. Obviously, there's not much we can do to affect the Dodgers as much as we think, standing in the same spot or whatever it is, gives the Dodgers powers during the season. But we know that we want to see the Dodgers win the World Series. That's a given. That we know we want to see a lot of different things, but we can get into a little more specifics of what we want to see this year.
Yeah, I'll tell you my first one, and I went kind of with more. I guess I have one individual and one team one. Although the team one is really, I need two individuals to do it. One of my goals is for the Dodgers to have two pitchers with 150 innings pitched. I'm not going to go so far as to say two pitchers who qualify for the ERA title. That would be 162 innings pitched, because if they do a six-man rotation, it's even harder to get to qualifying for the ERA title, and I'm okay with that, especially if they build a super bullpen like they seem to be doing. But I would like to see the Dodgers haven't had a single guy get to 150 innings in the last 2 years, and 150 innings with a six-man rotation would be about a little over 5.5 innings per start. You'd have to go 6 most of the time, occasionally 5. And you'd have to stay healthy the whole year. And that's the two big parts. I would love to see a couple starting pitchers stay healthy the whole year. Of course, I also don't care when they're healthy, as long as they're healthy in October. I'd rather have a guy be unavailable the whole regular season if he was going to be dominant in October. But, in a perfect world, I'd like to see a guy who stays healthy all year, including October, and maybe two of those guys. So having two guys get to 150 innings pitched, I think would be a nice welcome change of pace for me, for Dave Roberts, for all these, for most of the Dodgers relievers. Like we saw some spots in 2024 where the bullpen was really bad, and that was directly because actually we had it in 2023 too. But the last 2 years, there's been pretty significant stretches where the bullpen was terrible, but it was because the starters were going 4 innings a game and the bullpen just got burned out. And I would like to see some of that go away.
Yeah, obviously, I think as Dodger fans, because of the last couple years, I think health is a big one for there. You see some in the chat here on YouTube, and I had similar one, but mine was a specific player. I want to see Tyler Glasnow go end to end, just because one, obviously he's a really good pitcher. Two, like for whatever reason, he's the guy I've been drawn to in the Dodgers roster. That I kind of like him. I feel like when you're a guy that gets labeled as injury prone, or with his name, obviously a lot easier to make that into a little bit of a funny name, with Glass now and all that type of stuff. But I know that he doesn't want to get hurt. Obviously, last year, I know it probably hurt him to watch the Dodgers go through the postseason, knowing that they needed starting pitching and he can help out. And obviously he enjoyed the win and everything else, and he was part of celebrations and all that type of stuff. But I think he's the guy that I want to see go wire to wire, be pitching every 6 day, whatever it is, for the Dodgers, and then get that postseason start, and then pitch all the way through and get a World Series start for the Dodgers. He's the one I want to see, and it's hard to have a resolution that is something that's not necessarily entirely in something you can control. Like he could do as much different things as he wants. He can do as much training and whatever body recovery and everything else as he wants. And one bad pitch could still put you on the surgery table. But yeah, that's just what I want to see, and hopefully it can happen.
Yeah, Glasnow is definitely one. If they were to have, for my resolution to come true, yours probably would too, because when you look at it, Ohtani is going to have a hard time getting to 150 because he's not going to be pitching at the start of the season. Roki Sasaki is, they're going to have even more kid gloves than with a lot of guys with him. Blake Snell has topped 150 innings twice in his career, but he's probably the other one. It's probably got to, I guess, Yamamoto. Two of those three, Glasnow, Yamamoto, and Snell, those are your real options for guys to get to 150 innings pitched, because the other guys, whether it's Dustin May or Tony Gonsolin coming back from injury, or Landon Knack or Bobby Miller, I guess if my theory that Bobby Miller's issues were somehow physical turns out to be correct, and he actually shows up to spring training being a good pitcher again, he actually might be their best chance to get to 150 innings, because if he's resolved physical issues, maybe he could be good. But yeah, mostly it's just, I don't care who it is, just somebody, two guys just get to 150 innings, because I think that would kind of underscore, it's like that. I saw a report that people who can do 40 push-ups at a time live longer than people who can't. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a little misleading, because people who can do 40 push-ups at a time, probably aren't super overweight, probably eat healthy, do all those other things. It's kind of the same thing. It's not that I care about the number of innings pitched, is that if you have guys pitching 150 innings, other things are probably going well for you too.
Yeah, and I think what yours kind of lends to is something I had thought about as one of them, is getting some Dodgers back in the Cy Young, top 5 Cy Young votes, or top 1 might be tough to ask with the 6-man rotation. You have to really be, legit, and have some deep outings in some of those games. But the Dodgers, we're used to seeing them sprinkled win Cy Young. Obviously, Kershaw for a long time was always near the top or winning it all. In MVP, they always have guys that top 10 or at least get some votes. I think it'd be nice to see some Dodgers there in the Cy Young side of things again. So
absolutely.
There are other things we want to see in 2025, so we're going to talk about those. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL postseason playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action. You have one weekend left, and you can use FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, to help you out because right now new customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to pick up a W. It's not just as it can be as easy as this team is going to lose or this team is going to win. You put the $5 down and boom. But you can also get in on the action once the game has started. Let's just say, a game gets started and there's a team that already clinched their playoff spot. They already have their seed locked and they start their starters, but then pull them after one series. Well, now you can be like, oh, well, I think maybe the other team has a better chance of winning now. You get on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, you put $5 down on whatever you think is going to happen. And once that bet hits, boom, $250 in bonus bets right there on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, ready for you to put down a lot more things. So right now you can do all that if you go to FanDuel.com and you join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We know there are a lot of you out there, and we appreciate you. And if you aren't one of those out there yet, you can do that. All you have to do is listen or watch every day. We're on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Easy to listen, easy to watch. Put us on 2x speed. You'll get through halfway, you'll get through in half the time. And save yourself a little time on your day if you want to. And our voices will sound a lot different and maybe more appealing to you. I don't know. Sometimes I listen to some podcasts on 2x speed and I like it better than the host on 1x speed. So,
especially if you listen at faster, I never do 2x speed. That's too fast for me. But if you listen at faster speed and then let's just do it regular, like, why is this dude talking so slow? He sounds like Rob Manfred after the 2020 World Series.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, you can go beyond the podcast, come on Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us, and you can get a special invite to a discourse group if you want to talk Dodgers with a bunch of other Dodger fans. So, go join subtext.com/LockedOnDodgers to do that. All right, Jeff. I'll let you go first again because why not? Even if we have the same resolution, it's still going to work out for us as Dodger fans. So.
Yeah, I would guess we don't have the same resolution on this one. Mine, other one is specific to Mookie Betts. With Mookie playing in the infield, right now the plan is for him to play shortstop. Whether he sticks at shortstop or goes to second base, both of those is going to be less running than playing right field. Ideally, fresher legs. And it wasn't so long ago that Mookie Betts was fast. And Mookie Betts is now not fast. He's actually below average among Major League Baseball players sprint speed. He could definitely still beat David Vassegh in a race, but he is not a fast big league baseball player anymore. And if you look at his rookie year, he was 90th percentile in sprint speed. And then for his last 4 years in Boston, he was comfortably in the mid 70s percentile. So he was comfortably above average in sprint speed. And then his first year at the Dodgers, he bumped back up to 87th percentile, very fast. And then you remember 2021, he had that hip injury. And ever since then, he has not been fast. He 56th percentile in 2021, 52nd percentile in 2022, down to 47th in 2023. And then this past season, 31st percentile in sprint speed for Mookie Betts. And yet we still see times when he's still a very good base runner. And I think that he still has some of that speed in him. I've been watching, obviously, a lot of World Series postseason highlights and stuff, seeing him running around the bases on which play was it? I can't remember now. Might have been Teoscar's double in the 5th inning of Game 5. He actually looks like he still has more speed than we see on an everyday basis. And I am hoping that with Mookie spending less of his energy running back and forth to right field, running all around the outfield, chasing baseballs, that he might get a little bit more aggressive on the bases. And even, like Shohei Ohtani, more than doubled his previous high for stolen bases in a season. And part of that was a conscious decision working with the strength coaches and the base running coaches and everything to become a better base stealer. I would like to see Mookie, obviously if he's playing shortstop, most of his effort will have to go towards playing shortstop. But I also think a lot of that can be done in the offseason. And I would like to see Mookie not necessarily steal 59 bases like Shohei Ohtani did, but I would like to see Mookie get back to being at least a little bit of a threat to steal a base, to take the extra base, and just being a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
And I guess by a little bit, I got to put a number on, I guess, if it's a goal. I want him 60th percentile in sprint speed. A little bit above average.
There you go. That'll work. And, with Ohtani, I would assume means stealing less now that he's going to pitch this year. You don't have to, but it'd be cool to pick up some of these stolen bases somewhere else. And if Mookie's one of those guys, that might be it. Mine is also specific to a player again on this one. And I want to see Muncy get to 40 homers. He's been 35, 36, I think a couple of times. Obviously, last year he was hurt for most of the year. And, he's had struggles a little bit offensively, more so a little bit the last couple of years. But I think now with Muncy, you're going to be batting fifth in this lineup. You're really not counted on like you were before to produce. And I think after last year, maybe there'll be a little bit of perspective gained in the fact of, you just got to go up there and do what you need to do. And I think he can get to 40. I think if he obviously stays healthy, that's the biggest part of it. But I think right there in that spot, lower in the lineup, not counted on as much. And just for the fact, obviously, I know he's getting older, and it's not easier when you get older. But I just like seeing Max Muncy hit home runs. I think that's more so why I have this. 40 times seeing Max Muncy hit the ball and then drop the bat immediately. How dare you throw a pitch right there? That's what I'm trying to see this year.
Yeah, he's very good at the I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed look after he hits a home run, some of that dad energy. And yeah, I mean, again, kind of like my first one, 40 homers for Max Muncy would mean he stayed healthy the whole season. And, that would be huge. That would be, I think that's maybe my biggest concern about Muncy is, that oblique injury last year. You just start to worry about a guy with his body type, and how hard he swings. Is that going to be a recurring injury? So yeah, 40 homers from Muncy, even 30 homers from Muncy would mean he was healthy for most or all of the season. But yeah, Muncy is the kind of guy who, as much power as he has, you think of him as a 40 home run guy, even though he hasn't actually hit 40 homers in a season.
Yeah. We had 2 and 2 coming in, but I'm sure we had some other stuff we want to see. If you have anything else, Jeff.
Well, do you have some others?
Will Smith just getting back on track. Obviously, it's hard not to go the route of I want to see the guys that struggled last year or were hurt last year to not struggle or not be hurt. I think the one, and I don't care what role it is, I don't care whatever. I would love to see Dustin May on the mound throughout the entire season as well, just because I'd like to see if it's the Dustin May of years past of injury before injury. And he only has one more year left as a Dodger guaranteed, and I'd love to see him be on the mound a lot during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. One of mine, obviously, I want to see Clayton Kershaw's 3,000th strikeout. Ideally, I'll see it in person. We'll see what happens there. But maybe he'll catch us by surprise. He'll go into a start 12 away, and then he'll just have a 12 strikeout game just to remind us of what used to be. But so obviously for that, Clayton Kershaw is I look forward to all Clayton Kershaw moments, and that's the next big one coming up. And Tony Gonsolin, I'm excited to see what he is, because he was really good before he got hurt, and it was kind of sneaky good. There's no specific thing about him that makes him scary. He just goes out there and gets outs. And, the splitter is really, really good. The fastball is sneaky good. And so I didn't have a specific thing I could think of that I want to see from Tony Gonsolin, other than I want to see Tony Gonsolin and, see what he can be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, as much as the Dodgers roster is kind of settled, there are a lot of questions. Luckily for the Dodgers, are not a lot of the guys that are like, the offense is pretty set at the moment. Things could change. The starting rotation up top is set, and the bullpen, as of now is set. Obviously, things could change. Guys could get added, anything like that. But there are a lot of questions of guys that we've mentioned here, like, Dustin May, Bobby Miller, Tony Gonsolin, if any of the other young guys come back. And then, just, Andy Paez, James Outman, like there's different guys that you have no idea, what 2025 will look like for them. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And, we always say things kind of find their way for the Dodgers when they have maybe too much talent. But as much as I want to see all this other talent, like if and nobody gets hurt and we just have the same roster the entire year, that'd be great. But as we know, like, things will happen, guys will emerge, guys will struggle, and it just gets you ready for. I'm ready for baseball season again. I'm ready to go through it. And when you're going through it as the reigning champions, I feel like it's probably going to be a lot better because you could be like, oh yeah, well we're the champs, and you're still going to be good, and then you don't have to say, oh, just wait till October, they'll lose again. You can be like, oh, let's get to October. So
Yep, absolutely. I guess one other thing I'm interested, not really a goal, but I'm interested to see if Tommy Edman bats right-handed against right-handed pitching more often, with him being so much better right-handed. Obviously, some of that is the platoon advantage, but sometimes wonder, well, could he be, and since he's already shown a willingness to bat righty against right-handed pitchers, against certain types of pitchers, might see it more. But yeah, going along with what you were saying, it's January now, which means spring training starts next month. And that is a fun thing to be able to say. We're like 5 weeks away from Dodgers pitchers and catchers reporting, getting ready for that series in Japan, and opening up the 60-day injured list so that they can open up their 40-man roster and make some other moves. Yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. And it's a lot still fun to look back at 2024 and everything that happened. And it's a good time to be. It's always a good time to be a Dodger fan, but it's a great time, I think, right now to be a Dodger fan. And we always appreciate everybody for listening. And that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all for joining us. If you're here live on YouTube, thank you for listening. If you're at home or on the road or wherever you're at listening to this on via actual podcast, however you watch or listen, we don't discriminate, we don't hate, we appreciate all watches and listens. Remember, you can come in every day by listening or watching every day. You can go beyond the podcast, come a Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and be part of our insider group, which, does insider things sometimes, like get on the episode like they were on yesterday's episode. If you want to go check that out. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. If you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. They're running 24/7. Those are streams talking about the sports world and the LA sports world. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.